story of Pretty Woman. Once upon a time, there lived a woman named Vivian. Vivian lived in Hollywood because she enjoyed being in the center of so much activity. She also couldn't complain about the weather. One day, some bozo drove up in a really nice sports car. Vivian could hear its gears grinding harder than a piss-drunk white girl in the club when Drop It Like It's Hot comes on. She couldn't bear to see such a fine, precision-tuned machine be so abused, so she offered to help the guy out and drive him back to his hotel, because he also happened to be lost. He told Vivian his name was Edward, and he was in town from New York on very important business. She immediately regretted driving him home, as she settled in for a long ride listening to his pretentious ass tell her how New York was so much better than LA. She dropped him back off at the hotel and was about to take an Uber back to Hollywood when Edward came back and was like, "Hey, do you want to come to some meetings with me this week as my guest? I'll pay you $3,000 and buy you a ton of clothes." So she figured, why not? She could overlook the fact that he was from New York for $3,000. So the very next day she went out shopping. The first store she went to was like the Twilight Zone. The sales lady there asked Vivian if there was anything specific she was looking for. So she said, "Something conservative." And the lady said, "Yes," and then just looked at her like a moron. Then Vivian asked how much something cost. And the lady said, "I don't think that will fit you," which didn't have anything to do with the question. Then Vivian asked where the dressing rooms were, and the lady said, "I took a pill in Ibiza to show Avicii I was cool." And then Vivian just felt sorry for the poor, misguided girl. You see, the truth was that Vivian actually hated shopping, and she hated it almost as much as when people assumed she liked shopping just because she was a woman. So she went back to the hotel and ordered some room service, and then bought something online from Nasty Girl. So the next day, Vivian went back to the store to tell the women that they had made a huge mistake. But when she got there, she found they had all died from carbon monoxide poisoning, which also explained why they were behaving so strangely. So she went on some dinners with Edward and found out that he was actually a very genuinely nice guy. He was also handsome. So Vivian thought, what the hell, why don't I see what this guy's packing? And what do you know? He was pretty well endowed, too. This week wasn't turning out to be so bad for her after all. Until one day, when Edward was out on business, and his pudgy, balding lawyer came into the room and tried to rape her. Edward came back and beat him up and kicked him out. The whole thing was pretty terrible, but it was also kind of romantic. It wasn't such a good move for the lawyer, who lost a lot of business and ended up back in New York as a lowlife with an unemployed best friend named Kramer. After Edward beat up his lawyer for her, Vivian could tell that he was catching feelings, so she figured it was probably a good time to go home. And then Edward said, "Hey, you don't have to be a hooker forever." And she was like, "Are you serious? Oh my God, you poor thing. I'm not a hooker. I found a Chap. You know, that app that lets you upload photos and videos and speak directly to your friends?" And he was like, "You mean like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Tumblr, WhatsApp, Kik, Yik Yak?" She was like, "Yes, exactly like those, except it's new, so it's the #1 download on the App Store. I'm rich!" But it was really nice meeting you. And so Edward went back to New York, and Vivian lived happily ever after. Come back next week to hear more about the #1 anthrax cover band in Florida, Tampax.
At work, where he sold kitchen supplies at Pottery Barn, he constantly got promoted because customers would buy anything he sold. MILFs and brides-to-be alike flocked to his aisle to sample his hardware. I mean flatware.